We're now live, Chair.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name's Councillor Pounds and I'm chair of this committee. I'd like to welcome you all to the East Area Committee for the 7th of December 2023, and it's 6:30 p.m. I've had apologies tonight from Councillor Healy and Councillor Beckett, but the councillors present at this meeting are City Councillors Bagent, Bennett, Davey, Griffin, Howard, Moore. Well, I'm not sure if Howard has arrived yet. Oh, yes, he is here. Great. Thank you. Howard, Moore, Smith, Tong and Thornborough, and the county councillors Boulat, Shayler, Goodliff, Howitt and Councillor Beckett sends his apologies. Have I missed anybody? Is that everybody? Thank you. So the officers who are at the table this evening are Assistant Chief Executive Andrew Lim and our committee manager Chris Connor. If anybody has any problems hearing me or throughout the meeting, please alert us by typing in the chat function. This meeting is being broadcast live via the council's website. Public speakers are reminded that by speaking and appearing in this meeting, you are giving consent to being recorded. The meeting is automatically recorded and will be available via the council YouTube pages. So the process for each agenda item is that the relevant officer will give a brief introduction to their report. Councillors and members of the public participating will be invited to speak in the chat function if they would like to ask a question, or please feel free to just put your yellow hand up. I'm quite happy with that. I am working from a smallish laptop, so if I don't see you, probably best if you do put your yellow hand up or shout at me or something. Okay, that'd be fine. Thank you. The committee manager will check the Democratic Services email inbox and see if any more public questions have been submitted and received via email. And for the comfort of councillors, please let me know if you would like a short break during the proceeding, and I'll halt proceedings at the next convenient opportunity. So we move on now to agenda item 2. Do councillors have any declaration of interests, please? Councillor Bagent.
I'm a member of Cambridge Cycling Campaign.
Thank you. Any other declarations of interest? No, thank you. Right, we'll move on then. So we're moving on to agenda item 4, which is matters and I beg your pardon, minutes from the 13th. If it's item 3, minutes from the 13th of March. Are we happy to approve the minutes from the 13th of March?
My apologies, that's a typo. It is June the 22nd.
It is, isn't it? Yes.
June the 22nd. That's
Thank
a typo.
you.
My apologies.
Thank you, Chris. Yes. I was thinking it's not that long ago. Yes. Everybody happy and no queries on the minutes? Then the minutes are agreed. Thank you. And now do we have any matters and actions arising from the minutes? So there was one point that I raised that was raised for Councillor Davey, an action from last meeting that came from Anthony Carpin. I wonder if you would take that, please, Councillor Davey, and just to give us an update, Councillor Davey.
Yeah, thank you, Diana. Sorry, thank you, Councillor Pounds. Yes, there is ongoing work with schools, but it still remains on an ad hoc basis. So, for example, I go into Parkside to meet their political group. I also am in liaison with Impington Village College with regards to requests made by a student there. I'm aware that other colleagues and comrades in the room are also doing things. And I think the issue is really just now about coordinating that activity and making it more formal and making the offer more available. So there is progress, Anthony, but perhaps not in the formal and constructed way that you might have envisaged, but I will take this up accordingly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davey. Anybody else have any comments or updates from the last meeting? No, then we'll move on to the next item. Now we have a report on policing and safe neighbourhood. So I'd like to welcome Rachel Fairhead, who is the Antisocial Behaviours Officer. Hello, Rachel.
Good evening.
I believe the police section comes first in the report, so I don't know whether Sergeant Campbell would wish to do his bit first, or if you would like me to go first, I'm happy to.
I'm happy to do whatever way you want to do, Rachel. It's up to you.
I've got the agenda, the report up. Would you like me to read it in full, or should we just go to any questions arising from the report?
If you could just give us a brief summary, Rachel, I think that would be helpful because not everybody will have got a copy in front of them, just so that we've got an outline. But thank you very much for a detailed report. That was very helpful.
You're welcome. So the community safety team have been working across the city and in schools, particularly in your area, with CAMS Against County Lines project to raise awareness for secondary school children and the dangers of getting involved in that. We also coordinate the multi-agency peer group and places meeting, which is a meeting that we have monthly to discuss areas and concerns about young people in relation to antisocial behaviour and crime. And the purpose of this meeting is for agencies to share information and agree actions that safeguard the young people involved. We've also been doing some proactive work in Abbey and Barnwell to discuss issues that we've become aware of ASB and crime, done some door knockings and some street surgeries and trying to engage with members of the public to address concerns or answer any queries that they may have. And our problem-solving coordinator has recently met with Councillor Davey to have a walk around the area and discuss specific areas of concern that are considered to have high levels of ASB and crime at the moment. And this was in Petersfield. And ongoing prevention work for cycle crime. I think that's a brief précis of what we've been involved in this time round.
Thank you. I think it would just be worth saying that last, I think it was June, yes, that we were asked to, as councillors, to raise what we thought were the three most important areas of concern, and we raised antisocial driving, cycle theft, and the drug dealing and antisocial behaviour. So particularly the protection of young people, and you all were, I think, also focusing on Burnside because they had a particular problem there, and that will come up in a little while because we've got a question about Snaky Path, and we know that the areas that the problem are places like Burnside where there's quick exit. It's not very well lit as a street, and then there's a quick exit either over the Tins, up behind Sainsbury's on that little path there, or Snaky Path, so they can get away quickly. And so they are the areas, aren't they, that are of particular concern. I think the other one is William Smith Close and round the back underneath the cycle bridge. So I think Sergeant Campbell, would you like to make a report on your work and then we'll ask questions, or would you like us to ask questions? Yes, I think that's probably, actually, Councillor Davy's got his hand up. Would you like to ask first, Councillor Davy, and then we'll move on to the police after?
Yeah, it was a quick forwarding on from what Rachel said, and I was very grateful for the time that was spent with me going around the ward, and it was specifically looking at potential hotspots in the ward in relation to drug dealing. So when Rachel gets the chance to respond, I just wanted to see if there's an update on the placements of the two cameras that we identified together. That'd be really helpful. That's by Hooper Street and at the bottom of York Terrace. Thank you so much.
I'd also like to say that Councillor Bennett has popped in the chat that they're very grateful for the work you've been doing in Abbey as well. And it is a question of keeping on top of it, really. It doesn't go away, it moves on, but it's always there, isn't it? Did anybody else want to comment on Rachel's presentation or ask questions? Councillor Thornborough?
I thought we were going to say them till afterwards, but I can come in now.
Which would you prefer to wait now? And we'll hear from the police. Yeah, okay. Sergeant Campbell, are you there? Would you like to add anything to what Rachel said?
No, we continue working around your areas of concern. So antisocial driving, we're still out tackling it. When we hear about illegal car meets, we're putting in dispersals, which means they can't meet anymore. We're also giving Section 59 warnings to drivers that are driving antisocially. And what that means is when they're caught the second occasion, we can take the car and also prosecute them. The same problem arises, though, that a lot of traffic offences have to be caught in person. So while we get notified by members of the public that there are issues, it has to be a police officer that catches them driving like that a lot of the time for us to tackle it. E-scooters, I know that comes up quite a lot. We are still tackling that. We've got Operation Propulsion at the moment, 3 days a week. We've got officers out, first of all, engaging and giving out information leaflets about the illegal use of e-scooters, but also they've moved on to enforcement this month. So we should start to see quite a few of those being taken. Cycle theft, the last month or two, we've mainly been focusing around cycle marking. We're up in the 800s now of how many bikes we've marked, and we have seen a reduction in bike theft as a result of that because it acts as a deterrent. We still have people dedicated to cycle theft and the effects of that around the community. We've also done several warrants that you might have seen on our social media feeds where we've recovered stolen bikes and we have people under investigation for those offences. In regards to drug dealing, we still do proactive patrols and in uniform and plain clothes when we can and where we can. As Councillor Bennett's mentioned, we've done a couple of warrants up in the Abbey ward recently and also been tackling quite a lot of issues up there. But work continues around all three areas of concern.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Thornborough, would you like to ask yours now? Thank you. Yeah.
A couple of things. If sometimes going around the ward, I see what looks like dumped bicycles. They're sometimes really good quality bikes in funny, odd places where they may have been just dumped and maybe being collected later. Should we report those to the police, or should we put them on the app where the cycling? I mean, should we report those? And then another one is a resident on Hills Road has sent me data about when there is very noisy cars going up Hills Road, normally quite late at night, and there seems to be a pattern. So I'll send that on to you, Officer Campbell. And then finally, we've got an EIP bid for 2 benches to go at either end of Gwyder Street, but I've now been told that the officers don't want to put them in because of because they might encourage antisocial behaviour, and I really want to keep the benches because they were asked by the residents. And do benches really encourage antisocial behaviour? Thank you.
I was consulted about the benches by the gentleman that was raising the project, Councillor Thornborough, and I did suggest that the location of one of them probably wasn't suitable. It was quite tucked away and it was likely would increase people to congregate. I did recommend if a bench was to go in, it may be of the type that have the arms to go in to sort of discourage lounging horizontally on the benches and therefore become a bit of a hotspot. I was just asked my thoughts on that. I think the top end of Gwyder, the Mill Road end, I think was a more suitable position in my opinion. From the bottom end, I think was maybe too secluded from it, and I do think that may just attract people just to congregate there and perhaps be noisy, and then I think that might have a knock-on effect. So it can increase reports where it's particularly close to houses, and it just becomes a gathering point. And I think that the people living very close to the further bench wouldn't have been overly happy. But I'm happy to hear their thoughts, and obviously we can always relook at it. If I may just go back to Councillor Davies' question. Sorry, I realise.
Yes, please do.
So, Councillor Davey, I don't have an update from Chloe around the cameras on Hooper Street and York Terrace, but I will ask her for an update tomorrow morning and ask her to contact you directly if that's okay.
That would be great. That would be great. That the particularly the one on is it? I always forget. Is it York Terrace or York Place? But it's York Way. It's the one behind York Street. But the reason I ask is the camera for there has been promised for a long time, and it'd be really great to have some good news on its implementation. But thank you, Rachel.
No problem.
Thank you. So we have Councillor Smith and then Councillor Bagent.
Thanks, Councillor Pounds. So first of all, and I can see Councillor Bennett has mentioned this in the chat as well. Very pleasing to see the multi-agency work that's happening in Abbey. And I think it's always particularly encouraging when we see agencies working together to deal with this behaviour from a variety of perspectives. I noticed you mentioning the issues with drug dealing around the William Smith Close area. We are picking up as Coleridge Council's concerns that is spilling into the Coleridge side as well as the Romsey side there. Neil, Rachel, I'll be in touch, have a chat about some of the things that we're picking up from residents recently on that, because there's clearly concerns that that's widening out a bit. And the other thing I wanted to ask was a little bit broader. So I was at the community briefing, I think it was on Tuesday night, I think Councillor Bagent was there as well. And one of the things that was shared with us there was that the issues that come up for young people are often very different from the issues that come up for perhaps other residents. So particularly around drug dealing, knife crime, abusive behaviour, those are things that are coming across very, very strongly for our young people. And it would be really interesting, I think, for us as councillors to discuss how we can play our part in ensuring as many possible voices are being heard as we have discussions around priorities. So it'd be really useful if Neil or Rachel, you have views on how we might be able to do that. Let me know, or let us know.
Actually, that's a very good point. My advice would be to contact Romsey Mill first of all. The youth workers there they do some great work in the community, and they are very much advocates for young people. And they do come across quite a large selection of young people that from different backgrounds. Some of them are already presenting some challenging behaviours, so it might be worth contacting them and any sort of youth liaison people at schools. My colleague Louise Willerton may also be a good point of contact from the community safety team, our youth liaison officer.
Thank you, Rachel. So if you're happy, Councillor Smith, we'll move on to Councillor Bagent, if you've got your answer.
Thank you, Councillor Pounds. I'm referring to an incident that happened on the 28th of October on Snaky Path, and it was reported to the police. A man was attacked by two people, two youths, he calls them, and they ended up pushing him in the river and screaming and shouting at him and badly damaged his face. He called the police and the police couldn't attend. I just wondered, are you aware of this incident, or is this something that slips through the net? I see that on the agenda there's a question about Snaky Path, but it was we've got a graphic email which I'm absolutely certain was sent to you as well as us, and I just wondered if there was any news on this sort of incident, because this is not the first time that people have been attacked on Snaky Path alongside the stream, the brook.
From my point of view, I did see that incident coming in. I don't make deployment decisions on who's going out to jobs, because that's down to the response sergeants and the demand hub. So I can't comment on as to why police didn't attend that night. But as you're well aware, Snaky Path has its difficulties. It's unlit in places. It's quite overgrown, and it's something that we do go down quite a lot on cycle patrols to keep an eye on, because it's the only way to get to a lot of it is by cycle. But we'll keep doing that, and that's what we'll do.
Yeah, I mean, the point is it was during the day, and I find it strange that you can't tell us why nobody attended. I mean, is this something that we must learn to expect in Cambridge, that if people are being attacked, that the police will not be able to attend?
Well, no, I mean, it's risk assessed as it comes in. If the point that the person phoned in, the suspects had gone, etc., they would have risk assessed it and said, well, the suspects have gone, that reduces the need for police to attend straight away. I haven't seen the incident log. I can't see the decisions that were made around it, so I can't tell you on that one. But each call's judged on its merits, and they've only got as many officers as they've got at the end of the day to deploy to all the incidents that come in.
We had this discussion earlier in the week that Anna was talking about with the inspector, and this lack of resources in Cambridge City seems to be seriously affecting us. I know at the time police say, oh well, they're deployed elsewhere or they're doing other more important things, but when somebody gets attacked on Snakey Path, I find it hard to understand why the police do not attend.
Like I say, I can't answer why they didn't attend on that occasion, and I have no input on resourcing for the city, unfortunately. I wish I did.
Then what's the point? What is the point? If you've come here tonight to talk to us about policing, so what's the point if we ask you a question and you say you have no input on resources, you can't tell us why people didn't attend? What's the point in us bringing questions to you?
But as you're well aware, the resourcing is done by superintendents and also the Police and Crime Commissioner. That's who you need to speak to if you're unhappy with the resourcing in the city. In regards to responding to calls, I'm not from a response team. I'm from your local neighbourhoods team, so it wouldn't have been my team that came to the incident.
But isn't that what the local neighbourhood team is for?
If they're on duty, yes, but the response team respond to calls.
So was there nobody on duty at the time?
I can't answer that question to you. I'm happy to follow it up after the meeting with your council agent.
Thank you, Sergeant Campbell. I think that's probably best one that does need to be followed up later on, because I think it's not an isolated incident. I think this does happen, doesn't it? And we do get quite a lot of concerned residents who say that they've written that something's happened and they've called the police and they've not had a response for whatever reason. So yeah, I think a follow-up would be very helpful. Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Rachel or Neil? Anna, Councillor Smith, thank you.
Neil, I just wondered if I could follow up on that last point about resource. I mean, clearly it will be useful to know if there's anything that we as councillors can do to help make a noise on this. And I'm not expecting you to answer what is slightly veering into a political question there, but what I would be interested to know is, what does resource in community policing look like compared with, say, 10 or 20 years ago?
It is less, as you can imagine. On the East team, I've got 5 constables. That's mirrored across the other 3 teams for the city as well. So when my team's on duty, it's me plus 5 on a good day. That doesn't take into account any sickness or annual leave. And we've got all 4 wards in the east of the city to cover with those officers. Response teams wise, they've usually got a minimum strength of 24, which covers the whole of the south of Cambridgeshire. So it's not a significant number of people. But as Councillor Bennett's pointed out, it is the lowest funded force in England and Wales, and that's not something that I'm at a level that I'm going to be able to change, unfortunately.
No, but it's good that we're noting it, I think, and it is a concern, and it's not just in these areas, and it's in all sorts of areas that we do not have a visible police force, do we? Councillor Thornborough.
Oh, I had a question earlier about bikes which might have been dumped by bike thieves. Who do we report them to?
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot about that one. We don't necessarily take in property anymore unless we know it's stolen or we can find an owner for it. There's lots of social media pages out there that deal in this stuff, and that's probably your best bet. But all I can say to you is run the frame number through the bike register, and if it's registered, then great, we'll find an owner for you straight away. But I think social media is your best bet to find owners for things, unless obviously you know for a fact they're stolen, and then we will take them in.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions for this item? Any more concerns? The other thing, of course, is graffiti, which is horrendous all of a sudden. And that's not necessarily your concern, but it's a low-level crime that is kind of symptomatic of the issues we've got going around the streets with never having any police presence around. You know, that's how it manifests itself. Rachel, did you have any other points to make this evening?
No, if I just quickly address the graffiti issue, obviously the public realm team, we do have a reporting page on our council website to report graffiti. If the public realm enforcement team do notice a pattern, they do have cameras that they can install. if they think it's a hotspot area, to try and capture individuals potentially graffitiing things. If it is concentrated in one location, it may be worth looking into that and encouraging your tenants to or residents to report that by the website. I don't know whether you'd like me to stay for the Snaky Path or question, or whether that's more for Sergeant Campbell.
I think it's probably more for Sergeant Campbell. I think that one, but if you're able to stay, because actually it's not too long, or else we can email if we have any messages for you, if you like. I will just say that I've reported graffiti and it's been removed really quickly. It's they're very efficient and very helpful. It's just that the quantity, as fast as we see one and report it, there's another one. It's particularly rife up and down Mill Road and Romsey and Petersfield at the moment. Somebody's and it's not art, it's just scribble, messy scribble. Thank you very much then for those reports. I noticed that you were just seeking views. Are there any other areas of concerns that you have that you would like our views on at all, Rachel and Neil? Or have we covered everything?
Not for me, no. I mean, all I'll add is that while you might not see us around all the time, we are out when we're on duty, and just because we're not in uniform doing high visibility patrols, we are out tackling the areas of concern, which is drug dealing, etc. Just we're in plain clothes a lot of the time as well. That might be why you're not seeing us, but we are out and about whenever we're here. It's yeah.
Great, that's good to know. Thank you. And Rachel, anything else you wanted to raise?
No, I think that's it from me. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much for your report, and hopefully we'll sort out some kind of follow up with Councillor Bagent regarding the policing and the response. We're going to move on now to item 6, and this is the Environmental Improvement Programme projects, the report that we've had. So we've got, I think, James Ogle here.
Yes.
And John Richards. Welcome. Thank you for coming along. If you'd like to give us a sort of a summary and breakdown of the report, and then we'll fire some questions at you. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'll try and keep this introduction short so you have more time to discuss the potential East Area EIP programme for 2014-2015, if you so wish. EIP has been running for a number of years, which many of you will know, since 2004, and during this time it's been subject to a number of reviews. The reviews have been to ensure the programme continues to meet the council priorities, and as a consequence of the reviews, the programme has adapted over the years. There are now 2 forms of EIP funding: local area and strategic. Tonight we'll be concentrating on the local area funding for East. You're probably aware we ran an EIP funding programme round last year after a few years pause where we had to concentrate on other things that were going on in the country and across Europe. This year we ran an open application process which started on the 28th of June and closed on the 17th of August. Like we did last year, it was an open process. There was also this year slightly different. There was an opportunity for the public to select any ideas put forward and like or comment on them, and this ran until the end of September. In the report, the committee is asked to do 3 things: note the funding available, which is £29,114, to consider the new EIP ideas and projects submitted against the EIP funding availability and the eligibility criteria. Then to consider the recommendations made in tables 1 and 2 in Appendix B and discuss and ask for any clarifications and any questions. Ideally, the committee needs to be in a position by the end to give a clear recommendation / priorities in line with the available area EIP funding. Table 1, which is referred to, summarises the project idea ideas, the submissions, the information, and describes the project. Estimates how much it potentially costs, the locations, the persons in support, and any comments received, and the officer rating and recommendation. We actually received 24 projects within which we've left in the EIP area funding programme. We've put about 4 into the strategic. So the estimated cost of those 24 was 67,100. Obviously, there's a disparity of £37,000 there. We've actually, in the report now, in table 2, we've recommended 11 to be approved. The recommendation in the report and that of the committee will be shared with the Executive Council, which is Councillor Sam Carlin. He will listen to the discussion from today if it has required, if it's appropriate. He will then look at the officer recommendation and what the committee have discussed. Hopefully they'll be aligned, but they may not be. So he will then decide which projects will go forward. And they will be taken to environment and scrutiny as a record of decision in January 2024. As I said, also note the strategic projects in table 4. I think about 4 of them have come from East. And there's one that's to be recommended and approved, which is SE18, which is increased biodiversity and tree cover on Cherry Hinton Road. So this is, I suppose, now the committee's opportunity to discuss and consider if there are any more appropriate projects within the bids that we've received, and whether the committee has any different recommendations to the officer's report. John and I are happy to take any questions from this point on.
Thank you very much, James. Does anybody like to make any comments? I'm assuming we won't comment on every single project. I mean, I have one concern, which is that there's a large number of residence projects which have been not recommended. And we know how much work and effort goes into putting in these applications. And if you are just a resident and not a councillor, it's quite hard to navigate. And it does. I mean, I'd like to know what feedback you give back to them, and also how much guidance is available when they are applying, and what they're advised to do. I mean, and there are some for Romsey, for example, that I didn't know about. So I'm wondering if they are advised to talk to councillors as well or not. I suspect not. So there are some things there I think that we could do to try and reduce the number of residents applications that are rejected, because it's possibly through just not being familiar enough with the system, not getting enough advice, or whatever, I don't know. But I think that's something that I would quite like to be looked at, please. So yes, anybody got any comments? John, would you like to? I think.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I may just come back on that question that you posed, Chair. I mean, I think I would say that we're always keen to try and improve the process. So if there are obvious things that we could do to try and enable that, then more than happy to look at it. I suppose the first thing to say is that a lot of these projects, even though we're not recommending including them in the programme at this stage, it's not to say that they're not good projects. It's just that for various reasons, we think that there are better ones, and we've been significantly oversubscribed in this particular application round. So I wouldn't want communities to get disheartened that they feel that there's very little chance of success if they do put applications in. But certainly more than happy to look at that and anything that we might do sort of going forward to try and improve things. We've used the Citizens Lab engagement tool for the last couple of rounds, and I think that has added some new sort of functions for us in terms of sort of gathering information. But yeah, certainly we're always looking to improve, and if we can, more than happy to look at that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And then that's my feeling as well. It's not easy to actually link up and engage always. It's quite a difficult thing, but I think it's something that we probably just do need to try and do more of somehow or other in the process, so that you know, even if it's to say to people, no, this is not going to work, don't worry, don't bother. It might be less of a disappointment actually to have, you know, talked it through with the councillor or something, and come to that conclusion, rather than to go through all the works and then not be recommended. So it's great if we can have more of a conversation on that. Good. So I come to Councillor Thornborough. In fact, there's lots of hands up. I can't see who's number 2. So
number 2 is Rosie Moore. Okay, yes, Rosie Moore is number 2. Oh, so
thank you.
So last year I got the 2 benches either end of Gwydir Street approved, because that's what the residents had asked me. And this time I put in just a very small bid to help, just to help with a little bit of landscaping around each bench, which was to prevent what the antisocial behaviour officer was talking about. You know, you don't just put a bench down in an area that's overgrown. You need to make it looked after and nice, and that's why I had put this other small bid in. But the residents really keen for these benches, because it's about in recognising that this is a route to the community, which is Mill Road, and a lot of elderly people walk down Gwydir Street and need a place to rest, and also it's very difficult to bring anything into a street when you're not dealing with residents parking. I think they'd want trees and other things, but benches is the thing that they can apply for. And the 2 benches we got last year, we're going to work really hard to make sure that they do go in and they do not create antisocial behaviour. So I'm a bit disappointed we haven't got any landscaping opportunity around the benches, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thornborough. Councillor Moore.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for this report. I've got a couple of questions. One was about a tree in Coleridge on Hobart Suez. Is that primarily just because the budget overall is limited, and so we've got to pick and choose carefully? It's not very clear from the answer, because obviously it is going in for a different place than the previous ones. And then some of them, I think particularly the later ones, and touching on Councillor Pound's point about projects put forward by residents, some of them I think it would be good, and I know, sorry, it's more work, but a bit more of a reason as to why it's been rejected. Mm-hmm. And for some of them, so for example, the one on table 3 to decrease loneliness in the east of Coleridge Ward, it mentions a community space what is currently the garage site on the St Thomas's Square development. And so actually that has been sort of mentioned previously. So although that's not suitable as part of this, it might be good just to let people know that there could be other ways of working towards that, because that has been mentioned as part of the scheme. Also, I think there's an issue around people not knowing what is available or possible under EIPs, because I've certainly applied for some which relate to play equipment, as have residents. And so for those, it would be good to be clear where we can apply for those. So someone has requested, sorry, I am focusing on Coleridge, by the way. Someone's requested the swings at Robert May Close are replaced, like not the whole frame, but just the actual swing seats. And I've asked for the basketball hoop or the fence to be moved so that the basketball hoop is usable. So and also I've requested a football. If those aren't possible under EIPs, is there a different way for councillors and residents to request play equipment? And sorry, the one finger posts advising the public of locations of city centre public toilets, that's been rejected, and I wonder why, because I think that sounds like a great one for the city centre, and that was proposed by the parks team. That helps our residents and visitors know where the toilets are, but also it might help to prevent antisocial urinating in inappropriate places. So that seems like quite a good one. And I think that's it. Sorry, my long list.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Boulat is next.
Hello, yeah, thank you for the report. It's really great to see some of the ones in Abbey accepted for this round. I did put in the application for Priory Road wildflowers, and it does say that the reason why it's not considered is because of the ownership of the land, and there might be other potential funding streams available. So I was wondering, what are the other options for that? It's just because it is, I think, like there's a lot of support from residents on that road to have something there, and I wasn't aware about the kind of land ownership issues around that. So if you can give me more detail, please, as to what, perhaps what other funding streams could be considered for that one, because in the report it does mention there might be other options. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to answer that one, James?
Sorry, on that one, I mean, there's quite a lot of questions come forward so far. We will outline why and possibly who they can who people can contact regarding the EIP and the funding bids they put in. Particularly for Priory Road, it's likely it may be funded through kind of the community engagement team and through their B streets. So they've actually secured some money, it's like from internal budgets, to be able to deliver sort of environmental improvement projects in the community involving volunteers. So Priory Road, for example, would be ideal, and it'd be Wendy Johnson who would contact Councillor Bullitt, but we'd let Councillor Bullitt know once we've obviously gone through the approval and sort of recommendation process. So we will write back on the Citizens Lab to people.
Oh, thank you. That's helpful. Would you like to answer Councillor Moore's points, James? And then I'll move on to Councillor Tong next. Yeah.
Councillor Moore's points. The city centre public toilet ones went in as a strategic bid, and it was considered against all the other environmental projects that we had against the strategic programme. It's just the budget was more the issue. It's what do we take out and what are we going to concentrate on this year? The strategic programme was to concentrate on biodiversity. So that, in a way, was why we didn't go forward with public toilet signage. And we did think public toilet signage was a good project, but we've been over subscribed basically. So it's a lot. It's like that with quite a lot of projects. Not that they're not good projects. It's just we've had to prioritise from that in that respect from the strategic priorities. So
thank you.
Could in future rounds, it might be quite good to let us know. Put that in there. Good project, but not possible under the current budget. And was there an answer just about, for example, where to go with issues around play equipment that doesn't fit with EIPs?
Yeah, play equipment we don't actually fund through EIP. We did actually for both the replace the swings at Robert May Close. We did contact the applicant, and it was more about how it needed a good clean basically, and that was done within a week after her application, or within 2 weeks. Similarly, I think with Litchfield Park, we've talked about the basketball hoop, both with Ian Ross from the sports team and John Parrott from the play team, and they were looking at a solution, and I'd assumed they would come back to you or have come back to you on what they plan to do. No. Okay, that's one we had to pick up. That was quite a while ago. When he submitted it, it was before, yeah, so it was August time. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Tong.
Hello, sorry. So I've got COVID and I've got a bit of a head cold, so I may be slightly mumbly. Apologies if I'm a little bit unfocused. Firstly, I just want to go, there's some really great picks here, which is very, very exciting. I have a question, which I'll sort of add at the end. But one thing I wanted to quickly note is about St Thomas Play Park. I completely understand why it was rejected. You know, there are really valid points for it. However, I think I know because I've spoken with the team behind it. So it was the Friends of St Thomas Play Park kind of conceived it. And then I believe it was actually eventually put forward by one of my associates. They mainly just wanted to demonstrate a passion for the area. And I think the point they were trying to make is that they've been somewhat neglected, and I think they've been kind of the point's been made, I guess, by finding this, that there is a passion for the area and people want to see it get, you know, continued support. My actual question, which I'm sort of building to, is completely unrelated. That was just a tangent that I'd feel very, I guess I'd regret if I didn't quickly point in. The thing I really wanted to ask was something a resident has very recently asked me, which is if you could go into more detail about why the trees needed in Barron Streets EIP project, which is, you know, very, very popular, about why it got the no recommendation.
John, do you want to take that one? Or do you want me?
Yeah, happy to do that. Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair. So yeah, Councillor Tong, I think in terms of streets, very sort of hardscape streets, there is a technical difficulty around establishing trees in very urbanised, narrow, often Victorian sort of terraced streets. Just in terms of space and the very, very hot environment, which of course, if we can, you know, get trees to survive in those areas, it helps sort of mitigate the impacts of heat and you know, flash flood water and those sorts of things. But of course, at the same time, it makes it very, 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 very difficult to get trees to successfully establish in those streets. You quite often find as well that I mean, what we would need to do is that in these streets where there are really no verges, you really need quite significant underground excavations to create the sort of the support network for the roots of the tree to establish, and in order for it to thrive. And that proves very, very expensive with sort of underground utility equipment and that sort of thing. The other thing to add to it is our ARB team are doing some mapping work across the whole city, looking at sort of canopy cover and where the gaps are and where filling those gaps can have the most sort of effect in terms of sort of mitigating the adverse effects of climate change. So we're trying to be sort of more data led in terms of where we focus on the streets that we do prioritise for that investment that is likely to be very, very costly. So whilst, you know, we may not be recommending certain projects in this particular programme, there is further work going on looking at the city as a whole and identifying the streets where, you know, those sort of interventions could have the most benefit for the city as a whole. Hopefully that helps. Thank you.
Could I just chip in there, because I read the tree strategy that Matt McGrath had put together, which was quite involved and showing the places. And I thought, if you really wanted to know, why don't you ask local councillors? Because we know the places. I can tell you very quickly, you needn't have done a very expensive survey to say that, you know, roads like Coldham's Lane and Coleridge Road need trees. And in a way, I would welcome a bit more engagement with the tree team on finding places that really do need street trees, because as you say, climate change and the temperatures we're starting to get in the summer, it's really important that we get these in quickly, isn't it? As quickly as we possibly can. Thank you.
Chair, I'll happily take that back to the ARB team, Chair. I think what I would say is I think it's important to have the scientific data as well,
of course,
to back up that sort of evidence, but I'll happily take that back to the ARB team.
And I make 1 tiny point of clarification, sorry, as well. Sorry, before I may have accidentally said St Matthew's Piece instead of St Thomas's Play Park. I don't know if I actually misspoke there. I wanted to say in case that was ambiguous. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Davey. You're muted, Councillor Davey.
I think Anna might have been before me, but mine's very brief.
I beg your pardon, she was, but if
mine's very brief.
I
think I should probably declare an interest in E12, the proposal that's up for approval for around the Riverside area. I live so close that I could be perceived to be a beneficiary of that application.
Thank you. Councillor Smith. Apologies.
So actually, the last, don't worry at all. The last couple of questions have been quite interesting, because one of the points I was going to make, which connects up to, I think it was something that Councillor Moore said earlier, be very helpful when we're asking people to fill out these forms, to also say if they're part of a group or organisation, what organisation they're part of, so that we can reach out to those organisations as local councillors and discuss it with them. So it really picks up on that. Can we connect those local bids when they come through to the local councillors, or encourage them to chat to them? Be also really helpful if a bid is coming through on behalf of a local group. That would also be really, really helpful to know that, because I was actually also going to refer to the St Thomas's Park. I think it's E14, isn't it? And I think this is something that we could have, as local councillors, we'd have really wanted a dialogue there, because you're right about terms of the works coming up, the other context there. But one of the things that we could have also given some reassurance on is that there are plans for exactly this kind of work to take place, as some of the proposals around the work at St Thomas's Square anyway. So we could have filled in some of that information and hopefully had a conversation with the groups as well about how we can integrate their ideas into those future proposals, if those proposals go ahead, appreciating they haven't yet gone through to planning. So I think that would be really helpful. Councillor Tong, just to reassure you, because I know that you're still quite new to the council, at this kind of local level, we do try to work really closely together, whatever our party. So if you're picking up something, please, from a neighbouring ward that you think is important, please do talk to the local councillors about it, because we really do want to help. We don't want to be party political about this. So please do feel free to share that with us. We'd find that really helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. There's still some hands up, but I don't know if they're legacy hands. Councillor Moore, or did you want to make another point?
Yes, I just wanted to make two quick points. I think the St Thomas's one, obviously that's the site of the proposed redevelopment of the garages, and there is a plan in place to do some work to improve the play park and the surrounding green space with planting and benches and things already. That's in the plans. So I think that would make most sense to use that housing development money rather than, as we've said, our tight EIP budgets. And just on the tree survey, I would actually obviously support councillor involvement, but just to say it's really important that it's done strategically, and it was with a tree expert looking scientifically at not just where the trees were, but also the sort of height and width of the canopy, and to really give us a clear picture of where we are now, but also how things have changed. So it's important to have that really accurate picture so that we can plan where we need trees in the future to help, for example, with cooling, because anyone will know when we've had the heat waves, it really makes a difference to walk down a bare street in the boiling hot sun. So it's really important. Thank you.
It's also necessary, isn't it, in order to apply for funding as well, to have a proper strategy. So I appreciate that. I just felt that it would be good, I think, as well, to have more councillor involvement on that. Does anybody else want to make any points about any other yes, I'm just checking whether the councillors had any other points, but I think we've made them all. So James, if you'd like to, and John, if you'd like to make your points, yeah, that'd be great.
We do talk to the arboricultural team every time we get a bid in for trees, for example, and we talk to the green space team, like John Parrott and others, if it's about a park and anyone else who's kind of working in that area. So if it's in housing area, we'll go and speak to them and say, is this a project that you would support? And also for planning, for example, for St Thomas, we spoke to the housing development manager who's looking to bring that forward, because we realised that there was a development going to go on there. So that's one of the reasons why we felt, well, the funding's going to go to that area at some point. Is there any point in spending EIP at the moment? We could get in the way of the development and then it could become abortive. So we always do check with other professional expertise.
Great. Yeah.
Reassure you on that one. John?
Thank you very much. Yes. And John, did you want to make a point?
Thank you, Chair. It was just to pick up on a few questions that Councillor Bennett has put in the chat, Chair. So I think the first one that I can perhaps help with is the one around signage for public toilets, which we're not recommending is included as part of this programme, but we can certainly pick up with Cambridge Bid whether that might be something that they might be able to help with. So we can take that one. The other one is the question about Scheme E4, which is the Rawlin Road Oval, and the proposal there to have a sort of a community orchard within the green space there. And Councillor Bennett, it is in fact public highway, that area. It's adopted as public highway, unlike some of the open green spaces in Peveril Road, for example, which are not adopted as public highway, but that particular space at Rawlin Road is. So it effectively counts as public highway verge. That is its sort of its standing. So the issue we have there obviously is the purposes of highways verges, and we can certainly have if there's like to be more sort of appetite for this sort of thing and desire for this sort of thing, I'm more than happy to have the discussion with the County Council Highways team about what they whether they see that there's potential for this sort of thing in future. But we haven't had opportunity to have those discussions as yet. Chair, hopefully that helps just in relation to those questions.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think it's worth just staying as well, looking at the number of applications and the interest. How much our residents value green space, open space, and developing their environment. So it's great that we are able to do as much as we can. And it seems to be more and more that, and particularly our wards, which are very, very dense and urban, in large parts, the green spaces, even when they're these little pocket parts, which we have quite a lot of in Romsey, they are really important to people, and the more we can do to improve them and make them nice, the better. Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Bagent, I think you'll be the last one now, and we'll wrap up.
Why is it that the screen disappears the minute that you move the mouse? I'm sorry about that delay. I'd like to talk to you about the area outside the co-op that was rejected or not recommended. It's deteriorating. It was a big project by the City Council and it really needs some work done on it. Now, I'm not quite sure what you're actually suggesting here. Perhaps you could give me a sort of verbal response so that I might understand better.
I think we were suggesting actually working with Wendy Johnson's team, because they have small bits of funding which they could help the volunteers in that area to maintain. So they pay for paint and new plants, or preservative for the wood that's starting to probably degrade. So that was the suggestion, because there is a team who can potentially help that. So it's probably making that connection. And we would suggest, obviously, when we come back with, we're not recommending this, we would say, please contact Wendy Johnson. Wendy's aware of some of these projects that are likely to have these type of requests for improvement.
So you want us to contact Wendy about this?
Well, no, I will come back to you.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Following the recommendations, and then say Wendy's the person to contact. And then I suppose then it's that in that discussion, in that communication between people who want the improvements and sort of directing what the improvements are, and those that can actually help and assist with that. And actually they have some funding, revenue monies to be able to pay for small items such as wood preserve and paint and new plants and things that may have failed.
Yes, so you'll come back to me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, if I can just add to what James has responded, because EIP is capital finance, capital funding, it's very difficult for us to fund sort of running repairs and those sorts of things using EIP funding. So that's one of the difficulties, and hence why we would recommend that we try and achieve what's needed or felt to be needed here through other means.
In fact, I've used Wendy's team when we restocked them the last time round. They came and helped and brought volunteers, the community team. So and I think it was Ed Nugent who did actually say that they could do those repairs. I think so. I think we could crack on with that ourselves. Yeah. Although they are deteriorating quite badly. I think that was probably the concern, actually, that it needs something slightly more major doing. But anyway, we'll be in touch about that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, James and John, for that. I hope we've given you as much information as you need now to take away. Thank you. And we look forward to hearing you in response to our questions. So we just have one other item, which is a very brief one, really, the public art, because it's with the EIP rounds, we know where we are. They come at regular intervals, and that's not been the case with public art. And really, I just wanted the issue raised just to see what other councillors in the area's experience it is, and if there are any issues that we would like to take back to the team, because there's been quite a delay since the last round for applying for public art, and it is quite a difficult process. And then sometimes we get offered funding with very short notice to put together what are really quite complex projects. So I just wondered if anybody else wanted to share any experiences, and that we could perhaps move forward on. So I can't see who's number one. I beg your pardon. I'll take Mike Davey first. While I just check out who was the first questioner. Thank you.
Diana, can I suggest we ask for a report that we can then discuss? That might help us have a proper discussion around the issue of public art, because I do know there are concerns. So I think we could legitimately ask for an update from the public art officer, or indeed their manager.
Yep, sure. Thank you. Any other? Councillor Bagent?
Sorry, I seem to have a lot of things this evening. Can I ask to be included in that the work that's been done on Timberworks, the public art that's been put on Timberworks? How was it arrived at? Because it never came to local councillors to discuss, and it just turned up on a sort of slightly piecemeal basis. So perhaps that could be included.
Thank you. Yes. So, and there's a message from Councillor Bennett as well to say there's no response.
Can I just reply to that? Dave's point, you were consulted, Dave, because I was involved in asking you for your comments. So it might be helpful for us to, as I say, there might be issues here that we might need to take offline.
So that yes, there's a message from Councillor Bennett in the chat, and also Councillor Thornborough. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, just the public art at Timberworks came to the planning committee.
No, I'm not talking about that big project. I'm talking about lots of small bits of public art that are turning up there, like signposts and weird shapes and things like that. And I don't think we were consulted about that.
Dave, I can assure you were. So again, maybe we can take this offline.
Yeah, so that's fine. So I think that's something to go through, a request for a report, and then perhaps we'll bring it back to the next meeting. But there are obviously concerns in the area in this matter. Right, now we're going to move on to agenda item 8. Would anybody like a break? A short break? No? Are we all comfortable? Great. So this is our public questions, and we've had, I think, 5 or 6 questions, which I'll just, oh, excuse me. So I think our questioners are in the room now, hopefully. So our first public question has come from Berenice Howard-Smith. Berenice, are you here?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Hello, welcome
Hi.
to our meeting. We do have copies of your question, but if you would like to read it out or would like me to read it out as well.
I don't mind at all. I'm quite happy to read it out. I'm perfectly okay to do that if you'd like me to.
Okay, I'll leave that to you then.
Sure.
Fire away.
Okay. My question is this: there is ample legal authority to require that planning applications must be determined in accordance with the Cambridge local plan, unless material consideration indicates otherwise. If those considerations, particularly in relation to applications in the Abbey ward at present, such as sustainability, scale, massing, listed building impact and conservation areas, protected green spaces and biodiversity, are clearly not demonstrated by the applicant during their pre-application discussions with local authorities, why have these applications been submitted to invite public comments? How have they got this far into the planning process?
I'm going to ask Councillor Thornborough to respond to you, Berenice.
Thank you.
Thank you for submitting your question. While I assume this is made in relation to the redevelopment proposals for the Beehive Centre, the response could equally apply to any current or future redevelopment proposals in Abbey ward or the city. In general, the pre-application process is designed to provide an opportunity for a pre-applicant and the local planning authority to engage positively over potential new development proposals, and ultimately without prejudice to any future planning application that may result from those discussions. While officers would expect a pre-applicant to demonstrate how the proposals comply with the relevant local plan and related planning guidance, the process, by reason of its informal nature, does not allow for a predetermined view to be offered. In the case of the Beehive Centre proposals, the matters that you have indicated were all discussed during the pre-application phase, and in some instances, clear differences of opinions were raised. Notwithstanding the advice given, it would remain in the remit of the pre-applicant to decide whether it seeks to resolve those differences before it decides to submit a formal planning application. And that's what's happened in this case. So I hope this provides the clarity that you're seeking.
It does. Thank you very much for explaining that. Thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you for joining us. Good night. Our second question comes from Andy Kennedy, who's here representing Mill Road for People. Welcome, Andy.
Hello. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks for giving me the chance to talk to the committee. So I've got a few things here. I'll rattle through them as quickly as I can. So the first question is, this is all Mill Road centred. So I'm here representing Mill Road for People, who perhaps some of you have come across. So we're just basically after improving Mill Road and the environment around Mill Road. And we're interested to start with about the Pamela Wesson versus Cambs County Council legal challenge to the TRO to restrict traffic on Mill Road Bridge. And we understand from the initial hearing that happened, I think in October, that the judge ruled there that the county council could proceed with the safety work around what is the most dangerous junction on Mill Road for pedestrians, cyclists and car drivers alike, or motor vehicle drivers alike, and that's Mill Road, Devonshire Road, Headley Street, Kingston Street, those streets in just over on the Petersfield side of the bridge. So why is the county council not proceeding with that work?
No, I think that's Chair. I think that's me in the hot seat at this point. I can't. Sorry, you're on mute, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Beckett isn't here, nor Councillor Howard. So I think it's your one, Councillor Shayler.
Great to see you, Andy. And I think you appreciate we all have the same aim here to improve Mill Road, and it's unbelievably frustrating at the moment that this lot is slowed down. The decision to not proceed was made early on in the process to head off any kind of attempt at injunctions by that group. And the reason for that was because if they do that, they can ask for an injunction and then another one, and that has to go to the court and it will slow things down. So, and then when we did have indication from that first hearing that we could, it doesn't preclude them then asking for another injunction on part of it. And so our legal advice was that to act in good faith, we should stick to our word and say we will wait for the judge's decision. And it's so ludicrously slow. But I have to say that the current government has slowed down courts everywhere. It's horrific. So it is incredibly frustrating. But that's the reasoning that our lawyer gave to me.
And
Thank
could
you,
I ask,
Councillor Shayler. Yeah, do you want to respond,
just
Andy?
Thanks, Councillor Pounds. Yeah, I'd just ask what happens to the funding. I think it was a fairly substantial amount of funding, sort of hundreds of thousands of pounds set aside to do that work. What happens to that if it's not spent within this financial year?
Yeah, that is safe.
Okay. Okay, so I want to rattle through these because I'm conscious I don't want to take up all the time, but pavement parking and dangerous and illegal parking on Mill Road. Why is nothing being done about that? We suggested in our question that we might be able to think, we realise that enforcement might be difficult with budget constraints, realise that police are just not going to come out and address some of the penalty point type offences that occur near junctions and on zigzags. But maybe there's something we can do around putting physical barriers along the edge of the pavement. I've suggested in the question between Covent Garden and Mortimer Road in Petersfield would be an excellent place for that. It's a wide stretch of pavement where there's an epidemic of pavement parking, particularly in the evenings when you're certainly not going to get any enforcement done, I'm imagining. And a measure like that would be relatively cheap to implement. A few cycle stands, a few planters along the edge of the footpath. It's been done in other local authority areas in Wandsworth. So what's stopping us here?
Yeah, I think it's a really good suggestion. I took some photographs when I was in Budapest recently. They have very, very similar kind of things there. And those are the kind of things that we're looking at when it comes to redesigning the whole area. And so, like I said, I did a little radio one. I really appreciate Mill Road for People highlighting dangerous parking. Of course, our enforcement officers can do some of the stuff. When it is actually dangerous or obstructive, that's still police, as you know, and we do call them in. But if you notice it, what we can do is do a blitz, and every day we have officers on Mill Road, but sometimes we need to do a follow-up. They just disappear and then they come back again after. And so I think we need to do a blitz. Of course, we do have limited numbers of enforcement officers, and we have other hotspots across the city in front of schools and all sorts of places, as you understand. What I particularly would like to see is that the amount that we can charge for fines goes up, because it hasn't gone up in a long time, and that's up to central government. If we could increase the fines, then we could fund several more enforcement officers, because we actually use that fine money to employ enforcement officers. So yeah, if we can lobby government to put those fines up. What we're actually seeing now is that the cost of legitimate parking is relatively high, and clearly people are making the calculation they'd rather pay a fine occasionally than pay for the real parking. It's cheaper, and that should never be the case.
Okay, can I quickly come back on that one? All I would say is that as far as waiting for the big piece of work around Mill Road is concerned, we have very little faith that that's happening anytime soon. So here's something that could be done right now for a relatively small amount of money from the county council budget that would actually make a difference on Mill Road. I would urge you to rethink that, because it's a bit like waiting for the whole of the congestion problem in Cambridge to be sorted out, or do you tackle things on a more incremental basis? I'm really suggesting it might be advantageous to start tackling things to get something done, rather than expect some big scheme to come along and riding over the hill like the cavalry. Anyway,
I will. Can I butt in there? I'll take that away and ask anyway to see how much of it is possible, because it just seems to me to be a relatively good suggestion. In my experience, these things are a hell of a lot more expensive than you would think, but I will take that away. The other thing is that, yeah, a lot of this is glacial in the way that it goes, but I would urge that Mill Road for People, keep up your good work at thinking about these things, because what quite often happens is that it takes forever, and then once it's here, it moves pretty fast. So keep building up those things, because at some point they'll go, oh, and what do you think?
1973 is all I'll say to you. Is we've got the newspaper cuttings, So
yeah.
Anyway, we're not getting answers to some emails we're sending to councillors. I'm a bit concerned about that. We've asked about city infrastructure award, apparently included plans for Mill Road. We've emailed about the safety work and we heard nothing. We asked about the TRO before the initial court hearing and we heard nothing. So just a bit concerned that it's all gone a bit quiet, really.
Yeah, we are in a bit of a holding pattern, and I should have answered one of those. I was talking to Alex about it, meeting up with you guys. Some of it during the sub judice time, I'm really not allowed to commit anything to print. I'm not allowed to say, we're being very careful about it. That's all. So, okay, but sorry about that. We haven't. It is in a horrible holding pattern at the moment.
Just to reply to say we can't answer this right now.
Yeah,
because
no, absolutely,
great.
Absolutely.
Be great. Okay, and the last one is South Petersfield. Just wondering where plans are. I know Petersfield councillors and Romsey councillors have talked about station development and how South Petersfield traffic can be mitigated. I'm mindful that when the TRO does go in on Mill Road Bridge, Petersfield will still have a reduced but still substantial load of traffic because of the rat running that happens down Tennyson and will increasingly happen down Devonshire Road, I fear, because taxis, of course, will be allowed across coming from the east and will go down there to get to the station unless something's done about it. So, yeah, just wondered where you are with plans on that.
Yeah, we are working up the plans. I want the taxis to be on Station Road. The taxis want to be on Station Road, and that would have a huge effect. Once hopefully the TRO goes in on Mill Road Bridge, we are monitoring everything after that. So it would be a bit preemptive to do something before that monitoring goes on. But all I can say on the station development stuff is that Network Rail is very difficult. What we would like is the taxis to go onto that first part of the busway, past the bus station and out onto Brooks, back onto Hills Road. There's a little section there that's owned by Network Rail, and they are the sticking point at the moment, but we are working on this.
Okay, I certainly don't think you have to. That's great, thank you. But I don't think you have to wait for the bridge restrictions to go in. I agree it'll be slightly different this time because of the taxis, but you've got ample data from previous periods of restriction to see the impact in Tennyson, which has its own sensor. So you can do the analysis now. Okay, thank you very much for the time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just check with Councillor Thornborough, because there was a meeting regarding the station, because it was raised at the taxi forum. Did you have anything to add to that? And also Councillor Davey wanted to speak as well.
I've had a few meetings in relation to the planning approvals for the buildings to be built, a sort of F1 and B2 near the Carter Bridge. One of the conditions there is that the taxi ranking is resolved. So we've been working with the taxi group and including Councillor Shaler and Councillor Robertson. So we've so at the moment the taxi ranking continues, and we continue to talk to the developers and the taxis about that. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And Councillor Davey?
No, Katie's said what. That's lovely. Thank you.
Right. Thanks very much. Thank you very much, Andy, for your question. We're moving on to question 4. I beg your pardon, question 3, which has come from Martin Lucas Smith, and he's asked if I would read it out. So, I'm a resident of York Street. Is there any progress on the proposed residents parking scheme, and what is causing the delay? Lack of space for contractors and visitors to park remains a big problem because of spaces being taken up by commuters wanting free parking rather than using public transport. Will this include much needed cycle parking and trees, which can be done at the removal of only a small number of parking spaces? Currently, 100% of the space is taken up by car parking versus 0% for cycle parking and trees. I think, Councillor Thornborough, you're happy to answer this one.
No, I'm the city representative on the Assembly, so I could raise it at the Assembly on Monday, but maybe Councillor Shaler might have more.
Yes, Councillor Shaler, do you have any news on the residents parking? This is York Street.
Yes, I don't know the details. I have a vague plan, so I shouldn't say too much about it. I know that there is an upcoming review of the policy on residence parking, and this is particularly important for the Romsey scheme. It's being held up by some parts that are too narrow to proceed with, and also some of the appeals system. Nicola Gardner, who is dealing with this, has been dealing with the rollout of civil parking enforcement across South Cambs and to other parts, but she's now free, and so we're expecting this. I was speaking with the director of place just today, actually, to try and speed this up. So we're hoping that it'll go faster, and I understand that there is some implication for York Street, but I'm not sure what it is.
All right, thank you. And if Martin, you're listening, that Councillor Thornborough is going to take this forward. Do you want to come back, Katie?
Yes, it's just that York Street has been consulted on, but it more than 6 months ago, and I think the GCP officers are dealing with it. So we don't know why it's taken so long from the consultation to a draft. So I'll raise that on Monday.
Oh, thank you very much. And I think Councillor Boulat wanted to come in on this.
Yeah, just wanted to say what Councillor Thornborough said, that the consultation is completed, and actually Councillor Richard Howitt and myself, because it cuts across Petersfield and Abbey, we're planning to have a meeting actually before the Christmas holidays with officers to see what the holdup is and to see what the progress is on this scheme, because I know everything has been done. I'm not sure what the delay is about.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. I think that covers that item. We'll move on to question 4. Is John McGill here?
Yes, I'm here indeed. Yes.
Good evening, John. Welcome.
Good evening.
Would you like to, you've got 3 questions there, and I think I've got different councillors who've prepared answers for you. Do you want to take them one at a time, or might be the best thing, I think, if you'd like to. We'll deal with them separately because they're quite different, aren't they?
Okay, yeah, one at a time. The first one is about security along Snaky Path, which has been much spoken about this evening. I just would like to, so in many ways, as the issue has already been identified, that place is a particular hotspot for antisocial activity. I'd just like to emphasize that the local residents association is very supportive, if not more so, to try to get some kind of CCTV up there. Because it has been, well, things go on. There's been a lot of antisocial activity there recently.
Yeah, we did. Councillor Healy and myself came down and met residents from Burnside and talked about this about 2 years ago. And in the end, it was kind of, you know, we looked at CCTV sites, we looked at lighting, etc., and residents didn't want it in the end. And so it kind of folded. So, but it sounds like the trouble has reared its head again. And are you residents of Burnside? Are you Romsey residents?
Burnside is part of Romsey, I think.
It is. Yes, I'm saying, are you a Romsey resident?
Yeah. Sitting
So,
in Burnside right now.
right. So, would it be helpful if councillors, perhaps Councillor Banger and myself, came down and spoke to you again to look at this?
Yeah, we could. Yes, I think that's a very good idea indeed. Yeah.
Fine. So if you would like to email me separately, then and we'll see if we can arrange a come down and look again at the problem. I think in terms of the general police response, we've discussed that this evening, haven't we, and covered it pretty much. Yeah. So please do that then, and we'll come down and visit and have a chat with you again. Okay. So your question number 2, please.
My second question is kind of associated with that. There was much talk a few years ago about the Fulbourn Greenway, which would have progressed from Fulbourn all the way down Snaky Path and into Cambridge city centre. There was consultation upon this, but I don't know where it's gone from now. Is it a dead issue, or is it going to come up again?
So is there anybody who would like to fill? Councillor Thornborough, thank you.
Yeah, I think when the land south of Cherry Hinton was approved, there was a lot of discussion about active travel from the city centre to that site, and it was recognised by all involved that it's very, very important. Since there are other applications and discussions going on about in that area as well, so I think there are some really tricky points. Where the Tins goes over the railway line, it's particularly difficult. I think it requires a new bridge really to resolve it properly, and that's quite an investment. But and there is an issue about the Tins is actually next to a very precious chalk stream, and there's it has to be done very, very carefully to and balance the biodiversity that's there with a need for safe cycling. So it's still on the agenda, and there's quite a lot happening. But I can ask specifically about the active travel from the city to the already approved and site that's being developed, because that will include the area you're talking about. I can come back on that.
Yeah, it is. Well, it is becoming increasingly busy along Snaky Path. I mean, well, it is becoming a thoroughway, let's put it that way. My third question at this point.
I think Councillor Smith wanted to give you an answer as well, John.
Okay.
It was very brief, but I know that Councillor Goodliffe. I'm just looking down here. I don't think she's in the meeting.
No, she's not. She's given her apologies. Yeah.
But I know that Councillor Goodliffe has been talking relatively recently about the progress of some of those Greenway plans. So it may be she's able to give us a bit more of an update at a future point.
Thank you very much. And yes, your question 3, please.
Again, relates to the same thing. And I heard at the beginning of this meeting that Mission Street application has now been lodged and is being verified. I'd just like to point out and ask that it was very sneakily done just before Christmas. Can I have any assurance that the assessment time given for the assessment of the application might be lengthened because of the Christmas period.
I think Councillor Thornborough is going to answer
yes.
you. Yeah. Thank you.
I didn't think it had actually been the verification. I don't think has actually been completed yet. But I think the statute. I'll look into the statutory number of days. But on all applications, you residents should continue to make comments even after the statutory period has been completed, because comments will continue to be taken into account. It's just that after 21 days, the case officer will use what's been collected up to that point to start reviewing and looking at the positive and negative aspects of the application and raise problems that have come about and been highlighted with the applicant. But I will see whether the statutory what happens with the statutory period over the Christmas break.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much indeed. I think it is a bit sneaky, but it's only to be expected. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. We have one more question. Is Mike Ball here?
Hi. Yes.
Hi. Good evening, Mike. If you'd like to
evening.
give us your question.
Yes. Thank you for taking the time for this question. In the light of the Thriving East report commissioned by Anglian Water, which forecasts higher temperatures and lower rainfall in Cambridge compared to the national average, and considering the critical environmental issues such as the depletion of the River Cambs aquifer, it suggests the impact of the Beehive, Grafton Centre and other developments in the city combined could further exacerbate water scarcity and environmental degradation. Has this been assessed?
Thank you very much. And Councillor Thornborough is going to answer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Sustainable water supply has been acknowledged by us and the council officers as being a key issue when planning for the future of Greater Cambridge, and it's an important consideration now when we consider planning applications like those mentioned. Through our emerging Greater Cambridge local plan, we've been clear that the development strategy is contingent upon evidence being available during the preparation of the new plan that demonstrates that a sustainable water supply will be provided. We've been engaging with Cambridge Water and the Environment Agency, particularly with regard to the water company's emerging Water Resources Management Plan, which will go from 2025 to 2050. Significant supply interventions are planned, including a new pipeline connections and a new Fenland Reservoir. On the demand side, we are pursuing a robust water efficiency measures for all new developments. They will be the most progressive, and we're hoping that all new homes would be 80 litres per person per day. The challenges faced by Cambridge have been acknowledged by the government as well, who have established a Cambridge Water Scarcity Group, bringing together government departments and water industry stakeholders to try to identify solutions, both short and longer term issues, and also importantly, looking at the existing homes and businesses and buildings within the city and how we can consider reducing the demand that we've got in our existing places. The government's autumn statement announced additional funding to support the work of this group, and there's a lot going on to explore and address water supply issues in the area, and very, very importantly, to protect our chalk streams. So just specifically, there are some applications where a couple of years ago it was thought that they didn't require an environmental impact assessment, but because of the water situation, they are having to do that. And an environmental impact assessment means that the usage of the water has to be considered for that application, but also the accumulative effect of one application after another for the more major applications. And some applications have been larger applications have actually been turned down due to unsustainable water solutions.
Well, thank you very much. Okay. Did you want to make any other point, Mike?
No, there's some really good answers there. I mean, I just noted myself that in some of the documentation that's been uploaded with regard to the plan for the Beehive Centre from the Environment Agency, they do say themselves that, you know, I think this was in regard to the Cambridge North Station, that the application doesn't demonstrate the risk posed by the development, or sorry, it's not been sufficiently assessed or mitigated accounting for the impact of the licence capping on water supply. And they also raise the point that the Environment Agency's principal concern is the cumulative effects from combined growth. So, you know, it's nice to hear that there is some focus on that combinement of all the different resource requirements. And it's great to hear that there's, you know, some massive engineering projects going on for the Grafham Transfer and the Fen Reservoir. But I do note that they come online in the middle of the next decade, 2032 and 2036, I believe. And I don't know, there are very much worries about engineering projects at this moment in time. They seem to drag on longer than we would like. And obviously the chalk streams, which, you know, even if been mentioned tonight, are very precious, and it only takes 1 year for them to dry out, and then the life is lost in that stream.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I think we discussed it, also discussed this quite at full length at full council. I think everybody's very concerned. So yeah, and thank you for your response, Katie.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Great. Well, that I think concludes our meeting for this evening. Did anybody else have any other points they wanted to make? Good. I think we've covered a lot of ground tonight. So I just have one little announcement, which is that the next East Area Committee was due to take place in March. Civic Affairs Committee has agreed to pause Area Committee meetings for 2 cycles. That's approximately half a year after November, December, after this meeting, to assess a way forward. So I just got one. I think I just saw one hand go up then, which is Councillor Smith.
Councillor Pounds, I just wanted to say, given that we have a pause at least until the next council year, to say thank you on behalf of all the committee members for your chairing of this committee. I can't remember quite how long it's been, but it's been quite a while now, and you've always chaired us really efficiently and really helpfully, and thank you very much, Councillor Pounds.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you all for your contributions, which have been really helpful for us all. So I'll wish you all good night, and we'll end the live stream now, please, Boris. Thank you. Good night.